Alright guys, so I got a question on yesterday's Daily Dose from, man, I hope I don't butcher this, durukolonyasi. I probably butchered that, man. Durukolonyasi. Bam! There it is. A link to his channel will be in the description. Basically, he was asking me what is my favorite genre of game and why. Pretty easy for me. My favorite genre of game is RPGs. By far. Now the reason why I like RPGs is because I feel like I get my money's worth every single time I buy one. Even with some of the older RPGs that came out like on SNES, even some of the ones that came out, you know, on Nintendo. You know, I definitely feel like I get all my money's worth. There's tons of stuff to do, and there's a lot of places to explore. You know, there's the whole level grinding concept, which every RPG I play, I always level up to the max level. Usually before I beat the game. It's typically how I like to play those games. And most of the RPGs I have played, especially like with the Final Fantasy series, I've beaten at least 2 times a piece. Some games like Final Fantasy I've beaten multiple times, like, you know, 6, 7, 8 times I've played those games. I think Final Fantasy 9 I beat 3 times, Final Fantasy 8 I beat twice, and I will always have one of those runs where I perfect it. I do everything in the game, every single thing, I collect every chest, I do anything and everything I can do. It's a game where I feel like that when I spend my money on it, I'm gonna get way more enjoyment out of it than when I spend my money on, let's say, like a Call of Duty or a Battlefield or something like that. What happens in this generation is that multiplayer has kind of replaced the ability to have a very long and drawn out campaign. And when I say drawn out, I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean, I feel like that when you have a production staff who's trying to make a game, they do cut corners with story because they also have to work on multiplayer. That's just my opinion. I feel like multiplayer has become something in games that does not necessarily need to be there. It just doesn't. To me, it just doesn't need to be there. It doesn't even need to exist. Am I glad that it exists? Yeah, for some people, but not at the expense of killing the single player experience. So that's kind of my issue with games like that. Now, on the flip side, you know, if you're talking about spending my money and getting a ton of content, I'm playing Assassin's Creed right now, and this particular game is up there. I mean, it's up there with the RPGs because there's so much stuff to do. And even though it doesn't play out like an RPG, like you can't level up your character in terms of, like, you know, from level 1 to level 99, there's just so much stuff to do in this game, so many things to collect, that it almost at times feels kind of like an RPG. Obviously it's not, though. So my favorite genre of games will always be RPGs. I feel like this generation of gaming has been a little bit lackluster with RPGs. There were a couple of RPGs that came out that I liked this generation. I never played Ni no Kuni, but I do want to go back and play that. You know, Star Ocean was fun, things of that nature, but it really didn't have that RPG kick that I felt like was back in the retro days, man. When you played games in the retro days, RPGs were king, man. RPGs were king back in the day. And I have in my collection most of the best RPGs that you could possibly have for any of the old retro systems. I have a ton of those. So yeah, RPG is my favorite genre of game. Thanks again for offering up the question. I will not try to pronounce your name again because I probably butchered it the first time. But thanks again for your question. Remember, guys, if there's anything you want me to talk about on the Daily Dose, it's your time. You know, it's your show. So you tell me what you want me to talk about, and I will talk about it. It's more of a conversation. You know, I create a video. You guys leave comments. Questions are asked. The next day, I respond. You know, we just keep the conversation going. You see what I mean? So I appreciate your question there. Again, a link to his channel will be in the description, and I will see you guys in tomorrow's show. You guys be good.